Jana, we're talking about 4 ways your brain sabotages your content and your marketing today. I know.
That's gonna be the screenshot. Yeah, I think we all experience this where like we have like it's basically mindset challenges, but like your brain is telling you stories that make it so it's hard to create content.
It really does.
So,
And I was actually just posting on someone's thread yesterday, Shannon McKinstry. I think that is how you
mm,
say her last name.
yeah.
She posted on Threads, like right along the lines of this actual conversation, and I have struggled with what she was talking about for years, and it just happens to be what we're chatting about today. So, like, is it kismet? I don't know.
Yeah. Or is it just something that is
It's
very like
so relevant.
yeah, and prevalent, like people really struggle.
Yeah,
Yeah, I probably both.
probably both.
Probably both. Yep.
Why don't
But
you kick us off?
yeah, sure. Yeah, I guess I just want to say like I definitely hear a lot of, my audience, people who I work with are mostly coaches and service providers. And the type of content that I teach people how to write inside of high leverage content is conversion content. And so
Mhm.
what happens is it's not the kind of content where you just write whatever you're feeling like today. It's not like a journal. It's actually a process where we identify the specific things that your audience needs to learn and hear and understand more deeply to be ready to buy. And
Mhm.
so I think that because I teach that, it adds a little bit of an extra layer of sometimes like mindset gook, I guess maybe you could call it. I'm picturing like a layer of gook, because not only are we writing content, and so like some of those like, oh, is this good enough? Are people going to like it? And things like that come up. But we also end up having to address and listen and sometimes silence, the voices that are telling us things like, that are coming from like our sales mindset and our,
Yep.
things like that, right? So there's a lot of like different kind of layers and different things that I see people kind of struggle with. But I thought today, since we're talking about 4 ways that our minds kind of sabotage our writing of content or our content creation, that I just like talk about a couple of the common ones. And I know you have some to bring with you too. So the
Yep.
first one that I feel like I hear a lot from a lot of my students, is, and a lot of my students are very like deep thinkers. They're usually people who are very expert at what they do. And they also, it's like they kind of feel like there's a little bit of a disconnect between what they're an expert at and what their marketing is going to be. And HLC, high leverage content, kind of like bridges that and helps them understand and then execute on the fact that your marketing is just going to be your expertise. We're going to turn your expertise and your thoughts and your all those things that are going around in your head, your ideas into your marketing content. But we're going to
Yeah.
do that in such a strategic way that it's going to be high converting. Um, and so I think one of the first things that a lot of people say to me that's really common is they're like, oh my God, I just have like so many ideas, but they're all jumbled up in my head,
Yeah.
because they're deep thinkers. They read a lot. They think a lot about their clients, and they think about their modalities a lot and whatnot. So they just have a lot of really of things that inspire them and ideas that they have that sometimes feel like content ideas, but they just feel very like tangled up in their heads. So I definitely like hear that a lot and relate to it. I don't know. I don't know. Do you
Oh,
feel like you relate to that? Is that something you ever feel like you've got a lot of tangled ideas?
yeah. And oftentimes it comes in the form of I have a lot of ideas for like different ways I want to actually help people. And you
Mhm.
and I have talked about this a lot is, in what container or am I going to do that in? And then that container is going to have different, the ideas are going to be kind of bucketed by that container. And then
Mhm.
it goes even deeper of like the messaging then goes with each one. But with what I
Yeah.
do, I have like all roads lead back to the membership truly. If you're not going to work with me one-on-one, really the road is to go to the membership. So I even stumble on my own decision making of like, no, I think, I should talk about those ideas in relation to this thing that I want to
Hmm.
launch, when in
Yeah.
reality, it's just let's talk about it and talk about the membership for now. And we can maybe, move towards another offer or another whatever later. It's just
Hmm.
that decision making. I get decision fatigue and I just don't
Mm.
like making decisions. So when I
Yeah.
have too many ideas, I literally just don't do it.
Yeah, it's like you shut down. And that's definitely related to this for sure. It's like there's so many ideas that you just basically are like, oh, never mind, I'll just go do something else.
Yeah.
I'm not going to pick one of those ideas and make it content, because
Right.
like there's just so much going on. I'm so cold. I'm sorry. It's really cold in this
No.
co-working space. So I'm like, um, yeah, I hear what you're saying because this issue is kind of complicated by the fact that, yeah, you have a lot of content ideas, but you also have a lot of ideas about things you want to teach and sell. And I hear that with my students a lot as well. They're coming to me not only confused, sometimes entangled up about their content, but also about like, how do you create content about a lot of different things if there's a lot of different things you want to sell? So that's like a whole nother layer that's there as well. And I think, I mean, I have a, like a solution to suggest because we always, in these lives, we always make sure we're not just like talking
Yeah.
about the problems, we're also offering some things you can try to solve whatever we're talking about. Just like when we talk about mistakes, like Pinterest mistakes, we always say, do this instead. We're going to
Yeah.
give you some ideas that might help you, and things that have helped us in this live. But I think what I hear you saying is that, one sort of way that you've sorted it out is by having one offer that people can buy. Now,
Mhm.
inside your one offer, because it's a membership, the membership model works really well for you. And we're on a little bit of a tangent, but because you can teach a lot of different things inside the membership, and you do.
Yeah.
You teach Pinterest, you teach some content strategy, you teach, different things that have to do with marketing. And so by setting yourself up that way, so that you have this container where you teach these things, but you also know that all of your content will point back to this one offer, this one
Yeah.
container. And then I hear you saying, okay, but people could work with me one-on-one. And you're like, yeah, but I've made the decision in my brain that all my content leads to the membership, knowing that some of those people, if it's appropriate for them, will also realize that I have one-to-one things that they could potentially buy. But most of the people who discover your content and want to go deeper and learn more from you are going to find that the membership is the right fit for them. So
Yeah.
you created your content suite, and you're creating your content suite around everything that drives back to the membership. And that's a good solution for this because it
Yeah.
simplifies things to some degree when things feel complicated. So
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely takes some of the weight off of that too many
Mhm.
ideas philosophy. And I still have way too many ideas, and it causes me to not execute on them. I have too many
Mhm.
ideas for emails. I could send my list, so I just don't send emails. I have too many
Yes.
ideas for email sequences that I could set up, and I just don't do it. I
Yeah.
have too many ideas for, Instagram reels, but that means I'm going to have to get out my phone and actually film.
Yeah.
I want to do that.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's still I very much still get caught up in too many ideas, and I think my solution for that is just to identify that it's happening, be
Mhm.
really honest with
Awareness.
myself that that's
Mhm.
happening,
Yeah.
and then choose to make one small action step.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, maybe yesterday I made a piece of content for the YouTube channel. I didn't make it yesterday, I made it weeks ago. But I made and knowing that it probably wasn't going to get a lot of views, but I was very intentional because that was a piece of content I really wanted to create.
Mhm. When you say
Messaging I really wanted to get out there.
right. So when you say you really wanted to create it, it wasn't like, I feel so creative and I feel like this is something that I just want to have fun making. What you mean is you really wanted to make it because you knew that when you had it, there'd be a purpose, like you could send people to it when they ask a common question or something like that. Is that what
Yeah.
you mean by that?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just clarifying because I think sometimes people think like, I don't know, I'm just not, I'm a big person. I'm big on like content. It's not that content shouldn't be fun. It's just that it's not all fun. Like sometimes you just have to
Yeah.
create things even if they don't feel fun. And I don't think that some people hate me for saying this, but I don't think fun should be like our guide. So I just wanted to make sure I was like, or I don't know, just the way you're clarifying, because you're not like making it because it's fun. You're making it because you know you want to have it for a certain
Yeah.
reason to serve your audience, right? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
So, sometimes my action plan is just to do just
Mhm.
make one small step forward.
Yeah. And so you're basically intentionally choosing to not get overwhelmed with all the ideas, but instead to force yourself to choose one and implement it because otherwise you never do any of
I'm
it.
never
And
going to do anything.
that's a good habit to get into as a creator of any kind of content, and you've really mastered it. So it's really good. I have two other solutions. One of them is works for any kind of thing that you feel like you have a lot of ideas around, whether it's I have ideas for offers I want to make, I have ideas for content I want to create, I have ideas for, I don't know, those are the two big ones basically. But Kay Putnam, who I worked with for many years as her content manager, had this thing called a good idea fairy. And some people I know call it like a squirrel board. And it was called a squirrel board, I think, back when a lot of people were using Trello because they had a board on Trello. And you could have a board anywhere that's like this, but it's basically one central area where you dump all your content ideas and all of your like offer ideas as well. And yeah, that always helps me a lot because if I have an idea, I'll give myself permission. I'll put a parameter around it. Like I'll say, I'm going to sit down for 20 minutes. I'm going to set a timer and I'm going to brainstorm everything I can about this offer or this piece of content or whatever for 20 minutes or 10 minutes or half an hour, or whatever it is. And then I'm going to file it away in my good idea fairy because it's not an idea to implement now. This works better with offers, I think, than content, but you could do a version of it for content too. Knowing that it's there gives me the mental piece that I took time to flesh it out. And if I decide to revisit it, it'll be on that place and I'll have all of my in the moment thoughts documented. And then theoretically in my business, if I ever go through a period where I'm planning and I'm like, oh, well, I could offer something new in this quarter. I could run a new workshop, for example.
Yeah.
I can go back to my good idea fairy board and see what things are there that I feel excited about to implement this quarter. They're all there in one place. And you could use that for content as well. But the other strategy, and this is actually what I teach inside of high leverage content, for taking all of your ideas and untangling them. And part of the reason I teach it this way is because this method helps you determine which of all your ideas are actually the ones that are going to sell your offers. Because a lot of times, a lot of the ideas we have for content are just things that we think are good ideas that might be fun to write, but like I said, aren't really driving things forward. They're not really the things that our audience needs to learn and hear and understand to be ready to buy. So in high leverage content, I teach content pillars. And the way I teach content pillars, it's a little different than most people. Those 9 and 2 content pillars that I teach inside HLC are the 9 things that I believe people need to hear and learn and understand to be ready to buy. And so having a system like this one or any system that you choose to follow regularly that you can use when it's time to untangle those ideas so that you can make really intentional decisions based on your goals can be really helpful. And in this case, the goal is to get clients. So if you want to make sure you're spending time on content that gets you clients, not just any old content, that's what I created this system for in high leverage content. So that system or something else where you consistently use a set of content pillars to untangle your ideas and categorize them and make them make sense for your brain, I think is another solution to that overwhelm of too many ideas too.
I think that's a really good thought. And that's actually something I did last year when I was entertaining the idea of launching a VA program of some sort. And I've come back around to it. So that was last year, October. It's been a year. Come back around to it this year. And now I'm actually toying around with launching something like that.
Yeah.
But it took me a year of sitting on it to decide, A, I had time, and B, I had developed more of what I actually want this to be and how I actually want it to be perceived, the promise of the program. In the moment when you're really busy trying to just get content out in order to run your business, and just like full transparency, 2023, it's 2024, right? 2023 was a year that
for now,
like my business actually slid back in revenue in 2023. And I was rebuilding that going into 2024. And now I'm back to like 2022 levels because I was very intentional with just putting aside all the distractions and focusing on the one goal.
The money-making thing.
Generating the revenue. Again, that was not just, breaking even or paying the bills. I wanted to be able to have, walk away this year with profit to put into retirement savings or whatever the other goals are. But to do that effectively, I think when you're in too many ideas, I think you really, truly do need to figure out, like Jana said, what those are, and then possibly even just table them for a little while and come back to them. It's fine.
Yep.
You're not a failure because you decide not to launch an offer.
Right. Definitely. I mean, that's kind of the hallmark of entrepreneurism. Like that's why we do it, because we have a lot of
Yeah,
ideas. We're big idea people, but you can't do everything all the time. And if you try, you won't be able to do anything to the extent that you need to in order to like, it's essentialism, basically. It's like
yeah,
the book by Greg McGowan, if anyone's interested in this
it's
concept, is called
good.
essentialism, where yeah, sure, there's a million things you could do, but putting your effort behind like the one, maybe two, but really one,
I really
big
like
thing is going to get you further.
I really like the book Essentialism
Mhm.
paired with the book Deep Work.
Oh,
So taking the thought and the strategy of essentialism, and half my head is cut off because I'm normally sitting lower.
mhm.
Um, and then taking the thought process inside of deep work and actually finding time
Mm,
to actually work unmitigated, no distractions, like removing all of that stuff, I think can even help you with your too many ideas. I have another one and I don't know if it's in here or not. It's it's not, but it was a book about like strategic time management basically. So
mm.
like a few of these things, a few of these concepts actually paired together could lead you to a better outcome with getting your ideas into the world.
Interesting. Yeah, I know a little, I read Essentialism, haven't read Deep Work yet, but I've been hearing a lot of good things about it. I'm sorry if it's a little loud. Did I mention I'm in a co-working space today because our roof is
I don't hear
being
anything.
worked on? Okay. If I was at home today, it would be really loud because our
It
roof is
would be
getting
really loud.
banged
And
on.
Rue
So
would be barking.
yeah, yeah, for sure. She'd be like, yeah, she's at daycare today so that she doesn't have to be subjected to all the
So
noise.
stressed.
Yeah, okay, cool. So we covered that, a couple of ideas for like if you're someone who just has so many content ideas, but we started to kind of talk to about like if you have just like ideas for other things you want to implement, like offers, for example.
Yeah.
Some different strategies that have worked for us. So what did you bring another one or did you want me
Yeah,
to throw another one in the ring? Okay.
I've got one. Mine is trying to create content on platforms that don't make sense for your lifestyle.
Mm,
So I have struggled with this for years, doing short form video content on Instagram Reels, those really aesthetic ones where you film a lot of B-roll. Our friend Jordan is really into B-roll and
yeah.
doing that whole thing. I'm not interested in it at all. I don't want to
Mhm,
get my hair done. I don't want to do my makeup every day. I don't want to change out of my pajamas and yoga pants every day.
mhm,
And I live in a house with children that are pretty free range. So my house is not always clean, and I am
mhm,
not going to go out of my way in order to make my house look nice, to make myself feel better, because this is inner things for me, right?
mhm,
In order to film Instagram Reels for you guys. It's just not
mhm.
happening. If you want to learn from me, you can watch my YouTube content, and that's more
Yeah.
suitable for my lifestyle.
Yeah.
Filming a piece of content on my camera, exporting it and sending it to my editor, giving her all the points that I want included or not included or cut
Mhm,
from the piece of content, and then taking that content, and that's something in 2025 that's going to be a goal, is then cutting it up and doing
mhm.
short form videos
Making that
out of
your,
it.
yeah, yeah, that makes sense.
But it does not make sense for me, and I've burnt myself out, I don't know how many times, trying to come up with catchy reels, trying to find audio that's trending, trying to make edits that I don't know how to make, and
Mhm,
trying to film content in a way that is aesthetically pleasing. It does
mhm,
not fit my lifestyle, and that causes me to freeze and not want to create content on that platform at all, even though I actually enjoy creating content on Instagram, just not in that way.
mhm,
So for me, it's more conducive to create content on YouTube and then maybe make some feed posts
mhm,
on Instagram. So your action here for this is if you are feeling this too,
mhm.
is to get really real with yourself about A, where your audience is at. Are they hanging out on Instagram? Because actually have way more audience on YouTube
Yeah.
and on Google, like looking for me on Google. So I don't really need an Instagram strategy in order to get clients and students.
Yeah. Why do you think you had it in your brain that you needed to create reels and TikToks and stuff?
Because it's what everyone else is doing.
Mhm.
And I feel like, but I feel FOMO. Like if I'm not doing it, then
Yeah, yeah,
I'm gonna miss out. But I'm really not. Like I'm booked and busy.
yeah.
So really just getting real with yourself about the content that you want to create and the
Mhm,
style
mhm,
and being comfortable with it not looking like everyone else.
mhm,
And then pairing that with where your audience is actually at. If you are new to business, then maybe your audience is on Instagram. Maybe it's on TikTok. That's some stuff you're going to have to figure out for yourself, but not feeling the pressure to perform just like your competitors are doing, which I don't think of most of my competitors as competitors. But really finding something that fits more of your lifestyle.
Yeah.
YouTube fits my lifestyle. I can contain my filming to this room.
Yeah.
I could do that with Instagram Reels too, but it's just more work that I have to do. I don't want to have
Yeah.
to edit my videos.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think the way that your brain has been, or at some point before was sort of sabotaging you, or your
Mhm.
brain was, what's the title of this live again? Your brain was
Sabotaging your content and marketing.
sabotaging your marketing was, I heard two things. One, you thought you needed to do reels and TikToks
Mhm.
because everybody else was doing them. And number two, your brain was telling you, so your brain was telling you how to do what everyone else is doing. And also your brain was telling you that your house is messy and like that doesn't, it's not conducive to like two reels. And so for you, the solution wasn't like, oh, I'm just going to move past these blocks and like get to the point where I'm like, I don't care if my house is messy. I'm going to make them anyway or whatever. Your solution was like, you know what? Wait a minute. Let's get really intentional. Like, first of all, awareness. Why do I need to do this? Oh, I think I need to do this because everyone else is doing it. But in reality, like if they had a choice, they would much rather have the YouTube empire channel that you have than their TikToks that go away after. I know TikToks can resurface and stuff, but
Yeah.
you're doing like your YouTube's so much more awesome than any of that. Yeah, so I hear you. So those are the ways your brain was kind of like whispering and getting in your way. And your solution was, no, I'm going to find something that works for my life. Or in your case, you just leaned more into the thing you already knew worked for your life. And you said, no, this works for me
Yeah.
and I'm going to do more of it. And I'm going to put all my energy behind it. It's like, again,
Yeah.
the Greg McGowan concept, the essentialism. I'm going to
Essentialism.
make my YouTube channel like the best one. And indeed you did.
Yeah, I've done a really good job,
So,
I feel like,
yeah.
of curating the content here that um converts and putting a lot of focus in that in 2023, really going back to that, and then 2024 working my butt off, just making connections, networking, getting visible,
Yep.
all of those things, I think has been more fruitful than getting caught up in, oh, I just need to move past this and film,
Hmm.
I just don't care for you guys to see the inside of my house either, nor do I care
Hmm.
for you to see the outside of my house. There's a certain level of privacy that I
Privacy.
wish to
Hmm.
keep
Hmm.
in my world,
Hmm.
and that's just the way that I choose to do it.
Right.
So,
Right.
back to YouTube I go.
Yep. Yep.
What's your
Oh,
second one?
sorry. I thought you were still saying something. When you said back to YouTube, I go, I thought you went back to YouTube. And then I thought you went, oh, and I was waiting for you to say the next thing because I was looking at my
No.
notes. Okay. All right. So my next one, this is a hard one actually. So, and
Yeah,
I'm still not quite sure how to tackle it, but we're gonna just be real
this is
here
a hard one. I've seen it
and
already,
just,
guys.
yeah. Um, a lot of people, like I'd say the number one thing that I see my people getting stuck on when they come to me, when I see like on my onboarding forms, like what was the urgent thing that made you join high leverage content? Like what is really bugging you that's getting, that's what thought is happening. And I hear so many people say this, they say like, I don't know if I even want to bother creating more content because it hasn't paid off for me so far. So oftentimes it comes in a couple different shades, but the most common shade is usually people who spent a lot of time in the past creating content
Hmm.
and it didn't actually give them any like monetary ROI. Most of the time it's monetary ROI that they're looking for, which means they didn't sign clients with it. They didn't see it helping them grow their list or do anything that they could really see easily was going to pay off to create clients for them. Maybe their followers weren't growing, whatever those things were that they were looking for as like evidence that what they were doing was working, wasn't
Yeah.
happening, even though they were spending hours on content. And a lot of times people come to me and join high leverage content when they did that a while ago, but they haven't been creating content for the last like year or a few months or whatever, because they got so burnt out and burned and felt like they weren't getting anywhere with it. And so their mind, their brain is like, it's almost like a trauma thing. Like their brain is now telling them it's
Mhm.
not worth it. You're not going to be able to do this anyway, so why bother?
Yeah.
So it's pretty tough. Have you ever felt like that? And I mean, you and I, it's hard for you and I think at this point to relate because we've worked so hard over the last 8 years. We both started around the same time to find our way through that phase and get to the point where it's not that way. Now we both know that when we show up and create content, it will pay off. But do you remember feeling like that, or does that ever creep back in for you?
I don't ever truly remember feeling like that
Mhm.
to any measurable extent, simply
Mhm.
because I don't care. I just don't have a care in the world. If my content falls
Well,
flat this week, it falls flat. I have
yeah.
another. I
Mhm.
was reading a book this morning actually, and there was a quote from someone in the book that was saying, and this dates back to the 1800s, Janet, but like her mom would always tell her, don't worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to worry about tomorrow.
Mm.
And that's kind of the philosophy I've had in my business ever since I was very young working in banking. I started in banking, guys, when I was 18 as a teller, and I worked in lots of banks and eventually became a bank manager, like a branch
Mhm.
manager.
Mm.
But I learned very early on to take constructive criticism as not an affront, but as
Mm.
something that was going to help me. And I think
Mhm.
learning that lesson when I was 18, 19 years old behind the teller line when I couldn't count money properly really taught me now later in my content creation days of like it's okay if someone doesn't watch my content or if someone watched it and they said you didn't provide any visuals
Yeah, like
or
it gave
this
you
video was crap. Like
like
I
it gave
just don't
you
care.
would you say it gave you thick skin?
A thick skin, yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, but I will say I have felt that way on Instagram, bringing it back
Mhm.
to social media again. I have felt that way on Instagram a number of times.
Yeah, and especially these days, because for a while I know Instagram was working for a lot of people. And at the time that we're recording this, there's definitely been like a market difference. And a lot of people for whom it used to work, it doesn't feel like it's working and it hasn't been working for months now. So
Yeah.
that is that's a circumstance where this could come up. Yeah, but go ahead.
No, that's pretty much all I was going to add to it. You
Mm.
actually, I think you kind of married together your thing number two with my thing number two, which is just like that feeling that it just it's almost like it's a mindset thing, and I hate to
Mm.
use I really I just don't like the thought processes of like mindset stuff. Um it makes me uncomfortable, but I also just know that at some point in time I'm going to need therapy again. Like I just need to go get therapy again for these
Mm.
problems.
Mm.
But that feeling of like you're not good enough.
Yeah, yeah, that definitely is related to it for sure.
And honestly, like no one, literally no one cares about what you're doing because they only care about what they're doing.
Mhm.
So that was my thing number two was worrying about how your content is going to be perceived by the general public or
Mhm.
people in your sphere and
Yeah,
thinking that what you're creating is actually not good enough. And that kind of goes back to my thing number one of, my house isn't clean or my video edit cuts aren't good or my songs aren't great. Um, that thought of like, I'm not good enough or my content's not good enough. So therefore I should just not do it is
yeah.
going to hold you back forever. And I think as soon as I started publishing on YouTube, that whole thought process of tomorrow is going to worry about tomorrow came back for me because, you know, sometimes your videos aren't going to get seen or your Instagram posts aren't going to get seen and people aren't going to
Something
open your
flops.
emails.
Yeah,
But, what about that one person that read it and it made all the difference for them?
yeah. Yep, that's true. And if you focus on that person, that's a good strategy is focusing on that person. Yeah, I think that what was I going to say? One thing you were talking about that sort of relates to like the thick skin too is some like detachment from the outcome is sort of
Mhm.
what they talk about from a mindset perspective. And I know you don't love that mindset stuff, but I do. Um, and being detached from the outcome and knowing that you're going to do your best and put it out there and that you're not attached to it. The problem with that concept, though, is that like, for a lot of people, that's really hard. And it's usually hard when you still haven't experienced a certain level of success, which in my world, when I think of my students, because I'm always thinking about my students, like I'm obsessed with them, basically. Basically, what that what that looks like is like, I haven't gotten clients yet, or I don't have enough clients. My roster's not full. Like wherever we are in the process, we want that next thing. And so because we haven't experienced that yet, it's really hard to convince our minds, our brains to detach from the outcome. It's kind of
Yeah.
like it's easy for you to say, you know what I mean? Like it's that kind of feeling like you're getting clients all the time with your content. Um, and so that concept, while it's valuable, is also really hard for people to wrap their minds around, which again, for me, brings it all back to like having a really intentional structure. And that's why actually again, that's why in HLC and high leverage content, I teach this intentional structure that I know works because to whatever degree I can, I want to take as much of the guesswork out of content as I can.
Yeah.
And because when our brains are telling us like, why should I even bother with content? It hasn't paid off so far. It's also like, I just feel like I'm throwing spaghetti at the wall and, hoping some of it sticks, or, the juice isn't worth squeeze, basically, is the metaphor I think of a lot too, because I spend all this time on content, it doesn't work. But when you do spend time on content and it does work, when you see it getting you clients, when you see your followers growing, when you see your email list growing, all of that helps your brain turn the corner and start to say, oh, okay, I see how content creation actually is connected to my actual goals. And if your goals include making money, which we all should, because we're in business, so
Mhm.
we are, we have to make money to be in business. When you see how the content creation actually is impacting in a positive way what you want, which is, clients, income, impact, your brain turns that corner and now it sees that evidence that, okay, this can work. But it takes a while to get there. And so I created high leverage content really, and I don't know if I realized I was doing it at the time, but I did, to help people turn that corner faster, because I feel like the
Yeah.
faster you can turn that corner, the more likely you're going to be able to overcome any of those little mindset goblins that creep in and tell you, is this worth spending your time on? Like, why bother writing that blog post? You know what I mean? Like, no one's
Yeah.
going to care. It's not going to work. It's not going to get you a client. When you
Yeah.
see it work, you can do it again, and your brain gets on board. So it's kind of like it's, I don't know if it's a really like a solution strategy. I mean, it's basically like, come into high leverage content, like buy my thing and I'll show you how to do this. But really,
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I created the program that way. And who I created it for is those people who are like, I don't know if this is going to work. I don't know if it's worth it. I don't know if, this is going to be worth my time. And everybody who comes in and starts doing things my way, when they implement and do the work, they see that they turn that corner faster. And
Mhm.
when that happens, that's the solution. Um, so it's kind of like a roundabout way to sort of solve it. I don't know if that's really a strategy to offer, but it's the best way that I know how to solve it. And that's why I took the best way I know how to solve it, and I
Yeah.
put it in my program. But yeah, that's a tough one. And it's also, like you said, related a lot to like, I don't know if I'm good enough, but when you start to see that what you're doing works, it does wonders for you feeling like you're good enough.
Yeah.
It's amazing how those things happen together at the same time. So,
Well,
okay.
and this thought of should I even bother creating the content if it hasn't paid off so far? I think going back to that and just realizing that the first time you write a blog post or the first YouTube video that you film, it's not going to be good. It's your first. It's not
Mhm.
meant to be good. You're
It's like
not a professional.
the first pancake that you make.
Yeah,
It's
it's
never.
always horrible because you don't let your pan get hot enough first.
Mhm.
That's the key, guys. You got to let your
Mhm.
pan get hot.
Mhm.
But the, the key here with creating content and this mindset of I'm not good enough, or this mindset of it hasn't paid off so far,
Mm.
um, just understanding that it takes time
It
to
does.
build a business that is going to be fruitful for you. Not everyone is blessed with, a garage that they can write Microsoft code in and their first $1,000 investor in the company. Like, not everyone is blessed with, millions of dollars as a gift to open your company. Like, it's not, entrepreneurs generally don't have
Mm.
backers, and we really have to just take a gamble on ourselves and
Mhm.
understand again
That's
that
part of
no
the game.
one cares about you. They care about themselves.
Yep.
So the way that you can use this in your content is taking your content and positioning it to how I'm helping you. Here's how I'm going to help you.
Mhm.
And that I think will build trust with your audience a lot quicker but also give your audience value and maybe even some success that then builds on that trust that you're building with your content too.
Right. And what I think I hear you saying is it does those things, but it also helps get your brain on board with what you're doing
Correct.
because you're taking and this is like a strategy, we're kind of all over, but this is a strategy to help solve that mindset gremlin that says you're not good enough.
Yeah.
The strategy is to take the emphasis off you and stop thinking about yourself and whether you're good enough and just think, how can I help people? How can I serve? And when you do that, definitely, I've experienced that before where I need to give myself a quick mindset shift because I'm not feeling good enough. And you're right, that's the thing that works the fastest is thinking like, okay, I'm going to stop thinking about myself and how I feel in this situation and whether I think I'm good enough and just think about what do these people need that I want to
Yeah.
help and how can I help them best? And all the, yeah, and then you're on like a different track. It's like a pattern interrupt in your brain.
I think the number one thing for me with this entire conversation today is getting into action for me is the fastest way to get me out of inaction and get me away from the mindset blocks that I have.
Yes, yes.
Just doing. And this is like, I'm such a procrastinator too that I will wait until the last minute. I'm such a procrastinator, Jana. I will
Mm,
wait till the last minute to do not everything, but a lot of things I will do. I will wait till the last minute. And the one way that I get myself out of procrastination, and I tell my husband this on Mondays all the time because he struggles with it with his college stuff, is just getting
start.
started.
Yeah.
So the first thing he does every morning now, and guys, he's not an entrepreneur. He's a college student and he's a military guy.
Hmm.
He sits down with his coffee and he opens up his textbooks on his computer and he starts reading.
Hmm.
And that switches his brain into work mode.
Yeah.
So what do you need to do in your space
Yep.
to switch yourself into work mode?
Yep.
Is it cleaning
Yep.
your desk and making sure your desk is nice and tidy? Is it writing your to-do list the night before? Is it like every Monday for me, it's become ritual at Monday evenings and Tuesday mornings, I write my scripts for my Tuesday filmings, like filming time.
Hmm.
What kind of rituals do you need to build into your daily life in order to
Hmm.
get you into action
Yeah.
and
Yeah. And
away from the
everybody's,
brain sabotage?
yeah. And everybody's different, but my answer is always writing. It's some
Writing.
version of writing. It's what do I need to do today? And the way to switch my brain into work mode, if I'm feeling like, oh, maybe I'll just hang out and do laundry and watch Netflix today, is to write something, whether it's writing an email to my list or opening up my journal. I have a journal that's kind of like, it's not really like a personal journal. It's more like a work journal. Like, what am I, brain dump about work,
Yep, I have
using my,
those too.
using my fingers to type things, whether it's my thoughts or whatever, or something to someone who I want to help. Again, there's that,
Mhm.
right? It's like, I think writing an email to my list activates that part of my brain because I'm thinking, okay, what do they need? How can I help them today? Yeah, I agree with you. It's a great tip. Tip
Yeah,
straight from Nate,
straight from Nate,
which
right?
he got from you, though, because he got his
And
productivity advice from his wife.
the non-entrepreneur,
Yeah,
entrepreneur,
yeah.
far from entrepreneur.
Yeah,
Um,
so we covered a lot today. We talked about these four like mindset gremlins that get in the way of us creating our marketing. We talked about having too many ideas and having to like untangle them. We talked about when your brain tells you that, why should you even bother with content? It hasn't worked for you before. Why will it work this time? Not feeling good enough, like your stuff, what you're putting out is good enough. And then what was the
yeah.
second, the first one that you mentioned was probably part
The
of one
very
of the other.
first one,
Yeah.
just creating content that doesn't match your lifestyle.
Oh yeah. And but that was actually like, yeah, so the mindset gremlin was like, there were two of them. It was like, I don't like my
I'm
house isn't
not,
clean and
yeah.
I have to do what everybody else is doing. And so you had your brain tricked into thinking that you
Hmm.
were painted into a corner because you're like, I have to do reels, but I don't
Yep.
have what I need to do to reels. And so you can see how that kept you stuck because you're like, I have to
Yeah.
do reels, but I don't have what I need to do reels.
Yep.
Crap. And so you found a way to cut that pattern. You were like, well, wait a minute, I'm really good with YouTube. It works well for my lifestyle. I'm just going to get behind that and keep doing that and stop letting my brain tell me that I have to be doing TikToks or whatever.
Yeah.
Really good. Good stuff.
Well, I need to run. I got to get in the car and drive straight to the dentist.
Okay. This was like a really deep conversation.
It was. I
You're
really
gonna
enjoyed it.
You're going to be thinking about this in the dentist chair.
I am. Next week, we're talking about what to do when you struggle with content repurposing, and I honestly cannot wait for this conversation. I'm hoping Jana leads it because I want to learn.
Sure, I'll lead it. Yeah, it's like you hear everybody talking about content repurposing and how it makes your life easy, but you're like, wait, why is it so hard for me to repurpose my content?
Why
That's
is
what
it?
we're gonna talk about that next week. Yeah.
So that's what we're talking about. I can't wait. I hope you guys enjoyed today's conversation. It gives you something to chew on, and we'll see you back here, same place, same time next week to talk content repurposing.
See you then.
All right, bye. Ooh,
That was
all right, I
deep,
gotta run.
heavy. Okay.